Hello and welcome to Along for the Ride with me, JG1 Barton. In this fight, I'm on the Warground server, and I'm flying a Newport 11. I've got a Halberstadt D2 behind me. I know this pilot's good because I just had a fight with him, and I started that fight from an advantaged position and still only basically survived through luck. So now we're at least equal, if not I'm disadvantaged. I know I've got to do something pre-engagement to try and better my odds, and the climbing thing just doesn't seem to be working, so I'm going to come to the left for this cloud here, and I'm going to try and break contact with the Halberstadt and then come back in at him and hopefully come out at a neutral position and maybe get the drop on him. I know from the previous fight that the Newport 11 and the Halberstadt D2 have pretty close turn rate, turn radius, and climb rate. If anything, the advantage goes slightly to the Halberstadt in those two areas. So at this point, I'm really kind of wondering what my options are, and the only other thing that I really haven't tried yet is my roll rate. So I don't know how much more the Newport can roll than the D2. As far as I know, the D2 might just roll even better than the Newport there too. And if that's the case, if I'm up against a good pilot who's in a more maneuverable aircraft and has a good position on me, then I might not have a chance at anything in this fight. So I'm coming up on the cloud now. I'm going to turn into it and try and put the cloud between me and the D2, and I'm going to end up seeing that the D2 is still visible through the cloud, which means that more than likely I'm still visible to him as well. But even given this, I'm just going to turn into the cloud, charge through the other side in a slight climb, and hope that maybe somehow I'll get the element of surprise. Either way, I'm ready to fight. So things have gone from bad to worse. When I went through the other side of the cloud, the Halberstadt just put his nose up and really climbed. And now I've come back through the clouds underneath him, and he's dropping in on my 6 with E. So I've gone from bad to worse. And now I really need to figure out what I'm going to do. So I'm going to check my roll rate against his by first rolling to the right and causing him to roll right to follow. And then I'm going to roll hard left. And as he switches direction, I'm going to judge how fast he can roll. And when he starts to roll back to the left, then I'm going to roll back to the right, hard, and engage. Now the fight is on, and I'm going to try and push my roll rate advantage through the scissors. And this increases the amount of time that you end up rolling, which increases my advantage. And every time I'm going to switch back and go nose to nose. And eventually, my opponent is going to get wise to this, and he's going to start turning nose to tail to put us into a Luftberry, which is not what I want. The last two merges, I've forgotten to go nose to nose, and it's starting to cost me the advantage that I'd won through the scissors. I had rolled right, hoping that he would roll left and come back in nose to nose, but instead he continued out to the right, and I extend away and then break back into him to re-engage as I had done at the very beginning of the fight. And we very nearly collide. I had just taken a disadvantaged situation, turned it into a neutral, and then gotten a shot, and immediately followed that up by following him into a descending Luftberry. I need to roll to the right, but at the moment I'm locked on and I'm forgetting my game plan. He gained a shot on me when I reversed direction, but luckily he missed. And you can see how easily I gained back my position through the scissors, but then my opponent starts pushing a left berry again. And now I have to really be adamant about my game plan and not being sucked into his. Again, I'm trying to push nose to nose, and my opponent is trying to push the nose to tail. But watch what happens in the next merge. My opponent anticipates me rolling to the left to go nose to nose with him and starts to roll to the left to go nose to tail. I noticed this just as it happened and rolled immediately back to the right and chased him. And that little pause gave us enough time of separation that I was able to turn back around to get my guns out in front of him and put him away. And as I fly back towards my base, I noticed dessert. There's another Halderstadt D2 diving into our train, and he hasn't the slightest idea that I'm there. With 2 in the bag, it's time to turn home and put this sucker down. The last fight that I just had was a great example of 2 pilots trying to push their advantages in a fight in order to win. And it's a back and forth battle, and I just happened to come out on top. It was just a moment of hesitation that separated us enough that I could get my guns out in front of him. Had I not caught that pause in him rolling back to the left and countered it, if I hadn't been able to get that little bit of separation so I could get my nose out in front of him and make that shot, or if I hadn't made the shot and that fight would have continued down on the deck, who knows who would have came out on top. Maybe that other D2 would have noticed and came in and helped out. That would have changed the dynamic of that fight entirely. As it is, I got pretty lucky against a really good pilot for a second time in a row. Salute to my opponent for 2 really good fights, and to you, salute, and as always, thanks for watching.